to the podcast version of 32 Bar Cut, the show, a series for performers, about performers, made by performers. Every week, we give audition advice, share personal experiences, and sit down with fellow colleagues in the performing arts to chat about their life in the industry. If you are hearing this message, you are not currently a subscriber and will only be hearing the first half of the podcast. If you would like to hear the full interview, including the curtain call series, you'll want to head over to 32barcut.com, where you can find a link to our Patreon page. There you will have exclusive access to the entire video and private RSS podcast feed, as well as other subscriber-only content. Thanks for listening. Without further ado, on to the show.
You may have seen him in Bikini Bottom or giving his roommate a hard time in Indoor Boys. But today, this Broadway star is gracing us with his presence and sitting down and talking with us about what his life has been like to be a performer and a writer. Welcome to the show, Wesley Taylor.
Yay! Hi.
Hi.
I loved your musical intro.
Thank you. Austin
That was amazing.
wrote that, and we sang it together in our little makeshift studio over here. I'm gesturing towards it because it is directly in front of me.
It's adorable.
Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you? Although, how are you? What a loaded question, right?
I know. Well, when I say how are you, I really do mean how are you? Because I know everything is very different from how it was about a year ago. Before we started this interview, we were just chatting about how you were in rehearsals for Assassins, and then boom, so how are you?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I'm a little overwhelmed when I hear that question because it really makes you step back and think about it at this point in time. I'm doing well, though. I really am. I think one thing about 2020 is that it really forced us all to take stock of our lives and figure out what really matters and our priorities and, healthy perspective. So I'm doing well. How are you, really?
How am I really?
Yeah.
I feel like today's a good day. I only had one little moment, but I think it is a day by day thing.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. And we're having to take stock in what's important and what to prioritize. And I feel like I haven't done that in a very long time because I'm very career focused and very career driven. So my family takes a back seat and important events take a back seat. And now I'm like, wait, was that really the best choice? Right. Do I not want my nieces and nephews to know who I am? So I'm trying to work through that and what it looks like and trying to reconnect with people that I haven't connected with in a while. But for today, I feel good.
Good.
I'm excited to get to talk with you.
Yeah, same.
You
I'm
look
excited.
great.
Thank you.
I see you're doing a longer hair now.
Yeah, it's just fully growing it out. Why not?
Why not?
Why not? I have no reason to cut it.
Right. It's like winning COVID. Why not?
That's right.
So I've been doing some research on you because I like to research all of our guests, even the people I know have known for years. I do a little research. And in my researching, I found that you have been basically performing your whole life. Is this true?
Pretty much. Yeah. Got bit with the bug pretty early on. Yeah.
So when you say bit with the bug, as a young performer, in an art school and performing and everything, maybe in community theater, I don't know, summer programs, when did you decide that that's what you want to do for a living?
Way too early. Yeah. My mom was a music teacher. So music was a part of our lives. When I say my sister and I, she was always putting us in church, singing in front of the church crowd. And we were always, around the piano, singing, practicing the piano, music theory, that kind of thing. But beyond music, I knew that I just got drunk off the sound of people laughing at me or giving me any sort of attention. So I knew that I wanted to be, from a very early age, I wanted to be an actor. And so I asked my parents to get me signed with an agency. I lived in Orlando, Florida. So it wasn't LA, it wasn't New York City, but there was entertainment. There was an industry there. And they got me an agent. I was signed by the age of 9
That
doing
is
the,
amazing.
auditions for, commercials and voiceovers and industrials and community theater, dinner theater, did all of that stuff. But, it's funny that you call me a child actor because, I mean, I guess you didn't say it. It was like the idea of child actor. Like I looked to Macaulay Culkin and like Jonathan Taylor Thomas, and I was like, just so jealous of their Hollywood lives that I would just harass my parents. Like, can we please pay attention to my gifts and move to Hollywood so that my dreams aren't stifled? And they were like, you're a child. Like, just be a normal kid. Come on. Don't end up on drugs. Like, don't go that wayward route of every other child star. And in hindsight, I'm grateful that they put me through school and a normal sort of childhood, whatever that means.
I think that's important because the grass is always greener, right? You see what someone else is up to, especially when you're a kid. It's very black and white when you're a kid. No, you do this, you do that, you get this done.
That's
but
right.
It's not
That's
that
right.
cut and dry for sure.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I always wanted to perform because I liked the feeling of singing and dancing and making people laugh and stuff. But I don't know that I was taking it all that seriously. I just wanted to be famous. I wanted to be a star, but I wasn't like, I want to be good, and it wasn't until maybe high school. I went to an arts high school and then I was like, no, I actually want to maybe be the best that I can be at this and maybe learn and maybe study and maybe, go to acting school, what would that mean? So,
do you still play piano now?
I don't.
Oh, I feel your pain.
It's a big regret actually. And I am not someone who believes in no regrets. I definitely have regrets in my life. And that doesn't mean that like regrets don't teach you things and make you stronger people. But I do have regrets. And one of them is that I didn't keep up with it. We had to play an hour every day. We had to practice and we had lessons. And then like after 6 years of that, they were like, okay, you can either continue with this instrument or switch to another instrument. And I chose the drums, which was a really dumb idea. Because I grew tired of that after a couple years and I wasn't very good, but I was good at the piano and I should have stuck with it like my sister did. Oh, well.
I feel your pain. I took piano lessons from 9 through college and then I stopped. And I can't. And I was never brilliant. I had a lot of enthusiasm, but I wasn't a strong sight reader. I really had to practice. My technique wasn't great. And I really didn't start learning theory until I was senior in high school. So like my foundation.
So you were just sort of like ear playing? Or?
No. I had a proper teacher. She just wasn't really teaching us a lot of theory. So I was learning like really learning chordal structures in theory class in high school. But
Got it.
I feel your pain. I can definitely play my parts. I can learn my music. I can, 1E and a 2E and a, write down the rhythms, but I cannot accompany myself. Like, wouldn't that be so brilliant?
Yes. It would save money, would save time. It would be, I think that, I'm a writer and I would be more inclined to write a musical, whereas that scares me. I stay away from music.
Yeah. I actually wanted to talk to you a lot about your writing. Should we jump into that now?
Sure. Yeah.
Because while I was doing my research, I came across the plays that you've already written. You've written, well, at least on Wikipedia, according to Wikipedia, you've written 4 plays, one of which you already did a developmental lab for. And so I was curious what that process was like to put on your own workshop, your own lab.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I was always writing, I went to drama school and like that was a conservatory and you didn't have like too many you had to take 3 years of academics in the morning for like an hour to get your BFA. And so I was like taking playwriting and I was taking, and I was writing sketches, and I was writing, when I moved to New York, I was doing web series, and I was, and it was really a hobby. It was really a creative outlet for me, but I just did not take it seriously. And then the web series, the second web series I did, It Could Be Worse, I sold to Hulu. And so the first moment that I got a paycheck for my writing, I was like, oh, maybe I should take this seriously. Maybe I should practice this more. Maybe this should become more of a daily thing. And so then it did become more of a thing. And, I had these short plays, I would collaborate with the Actors Fund, and they would, give me a venue like New World Stages. And I would just give them all the proceeds of like putting up a staged reading of my short plays, and be able to, fundraise for the Actors Fund while they gave me a space and sort of a showcase for my writing. One of the stipulations was that I, stunt the roles so that they could make their money back. So, I called on the fancy favors from the jobs I had done as an actor, and recruiting Nathan Lane and Deborah Messing and Stockard Channing and people who I knew could bring,
an audience.
Yeah. So that started that. I was learning a lot about producing and development, within the selling of the internet entities. I sold a short form script and things like that. All this to say that it led to, like, 4 years ago, collaborating with Alex Wise. I don't know if you know Alex, but he's become my writing partner, and we developed this series, Indoor Boys, over the last few years, which started out really as just, again, a creative outlet because we were frustrated with what we were doing at the time. And then it got bigger and bigger and got away from us a little bit, just got more expensive and got more eyeballs on it. And then suddenly, got an Emmy nomination, and it's getting acquired by Here TV, and now it's on Prime and all that. So, the writing has really grown, and especially in the world of a 2020 pandemic, like when the acting career took a pause, because the writing was always taking the back seat to the acting. And once the acting career paused, like, I've become a full-time writer. Like, there's no way around it. I sit down at this desk for 4 or 5 hours a day with Alex over Zoom, and we write. And we've pumped out a few scripts just in the last year, some full-length stuff. So it's the silver lining that we've been able to be very productive during this time, as much as this time has sucked,
Absolutely. It's like we're all on sabbatical, a forced sabbatical, and now you have to really hone in on sure, your passions, but what are we going to make of ourselves? You
got to get a little resourceful.
Yeah,
you have to figure out how you can continue to be inspired and continue to be challenged, and continue to find reasons to get out of bed and put art out into the ether.
Absolutely. I've been watching Indoor Boys.
Oh,
and it's hilarious. I am on season 2, episode 5, I think. So I don't want to spoil it for anyone that is definitely going to go run and watch it now that we're talking about it. But that show is hilarious.
Thank you. Please keep watching.
Oh my gosh. I'm if I had more time before we came on to talk today, I would have finished the whole thing. But then I was like, oh, well, we can't really talk about it because I'm going to spoil it for someone. But so Nate and Luke are hilarious and complicated in just the perfect kind of ways. And I love it. I love it. And it's fun too, because I've only spent just a week with you, and now the time that we're spending today, but I find you to be a really kind and giving person. But here you are again playing the villain, and it's hilarious. It's really great writing. And I love that you and Alex decided to make your own opportunities. And you talk about being frustrated, being in a place in your life where you were frustrated with how things were going, whatever that meant. And
Yeah.
you took that frustration and you used it for your good. And now
Yeah.
it's snowballed into something really incredible. So
Yeah. Well, it's
congratulations to you.
also, thank you. Thank you. It's also about like, I'm a very work oriented person. I'm a workhorse. And
Mm.
I found someone who's like just as much of a workaholic as I am, if not more. And we've figured out within the span of a few years how to really meld our voices and like kind of finish each other's sentences. But that's one of the reasons why we jumped in the first place is this industry doesn't always feel like that in terms of efficiency. Like,
Mm.
obviously, especially during a time like this, but like even cut to, rewind 4 years ago when we found ourselves in Los Angeles and he was doing a soap opera and I had just sold a script, but it was just taking forever to develop it with the people in LA. And I think that there is a mutual frustration that we have in relying on other people because, not everyone enjoys work. A lot of people enjoy the perks of work, but they would rather have a 3-day weekend and get out on their yacht and experience all the advantages and the blessings of being successful without like really enjoying the process of what made them successful.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when you're waiting on correspondence of like someone to answer an email and it takes a week and a half, I have no patience for that. So one of the reasons why we are so productive is because we don't have patience. And so we take our negative traits and try to spin them into positive, productive traits.
Well, I'm glad that you found someone to match that, because I would imagine if one of you couldn't match that, this pairing wouldn't have been successful.
No, and in fact, I have, obviously attempted to put a lot of creative ventures out into the universe before I met Alex, and some more successful than others, some partnerships more successful than others, some collaborations more. It was really important and special when I found Alex because it is a creative marriage. It very much is 50-50, and you hold each other accountable, and sometimes you have to pick up the slack one day if you're feeling a little bit more on your cylinders than the other person. It's such a partnership. It's a dance that you're like constantly navigating. But it's nice to have that accountability partner too. And it's provided structure for me too, because before Alex, when I would write, it would be all about when inspiration struck. So it would be like, if you get an idea at 11 o'clock at night, you are not going to sleep that night because you're going to write through the night until it gets out of your head. But with Alex, it's been wonderful because it lends itself to a 9-to-5 structural job. Like I don't know. It's like that inspiration is structured, which sounds like counterintuitive to creativity, but it actually helps.
Absolutely. I've heard that before from writers. I do not consider myself a writer, but I really love this sci-fi fantasy writer, Octavia Butler. And
Okay.
she has a collection of short stories. It's called something, Blood and something. It's up there. But she has an essay that she wrote about writing and how it needs structure and that you do need to wake up every day and write and
Yeah.
not be the kind of writer that only writes when inspired, because that doesn't prove to be successful and you won't get better.
Right.
She says something like that. And I'm
That's it.
misquoting this really poorly because I read it like 3 years ago and it's just coming to my mind now as you're speaking.
It's real. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
If you
it's
like
real.
sci-fi, check Octavia Butler out. I mean,
I will. Octavia Butler. Okay,
yeah.
good to know.
Yeah, she's awesome. So I am also curious about your venture into New York living. I'm from Georgia, so I know what it's like to come from the South and move to the big city, and it can be a little daunting. But I'm imagining young Wesley was probably so ready because you already had your sights on the stars as a child. So now you're like, let's go. So did you?
I never looked back. I never looked back. Well, first of all, I grew up in Orlando, Florida, which is a ridiculous place to grow up. I went to high school across the street from Universal Studios. I worked at Disney World. I did all the things. And it felt, as soon as I went to drama school in North Carolina and experienced a little bit of originality, mom and pop shops and things that weren't, it just wasn't, in Orlando, everything was corporate, everything was chain restaurants, franchise and stuff like that. So I definitely didn't miss Florida. Like I didn't, like no shame, sorry if I'm offending all of the Floridian listeners, but I didn't miss Florida. I didn't have that real like homesick passion for it. North Carolina sort of became like a new home for me. But I knew from an early age that New York City was where I was destined to live. It was like, my parents actually met and went to college in Nyack, New York, upstate. Okay. And that's where they met. And then they moved down south when we were babies. So they had a connection to New York, and we went up there when I was a kid and then, went to the city to see a show, Beauty and the Beast or something. And as soon as I got bitten with the bug, we would come back to New York as a family on these like family vacations. And I would just give my dad like a list of shows that we needed to see. And because they didn't know anything about theater, but I was like, we will be seeing Night Mother with Brenda Blethyn and Edie Falco, The Crucible with Laura Linney and Liam Neeson. I was like 12, but I was obsessed with New York. I was obsessed with the culture, and I dreamed of one day living there in a high rise, looking out on the Hudson, going to my Broadway show, and that was the dream. So yeah, I always knew I was gonna go. My fiance Isaac was born and raised in Greensboro, North Carolina, and the first time he ever moved, he went to drama school at North Carolina as well. So the first time he ever lived away from home was when he moved to the city right after college. So that was a much bigger culture shock for him.
Absolutely.
And a much bigger adjustment for a human being, because I had gone to New York so much growing up. Not that we were like rolling in money, but like even in college, I would like buy $20 China bus tickets to drive 5 hours up and stand in student rush, front row or standing room or whatever to see as much Broadway shows as I could. So yeah, it was always part of the plan.
All right. So it sounds like you moving to New York was not daunting. You just got off the plane, walked into your high rise, looking over the Hudson.
Definitely didn't walk into my high rise. Definitely walked into like what do they call them? Those apartments where you have to like go through the bedrooms to get to your bedroom.
A shotgun?
Railway apartments.
Oh, railway. Yeah, that's it. Railway, yeah.
I lived with like 4 of my college roommates in a Brooklyn like railway apartment, but
you do it though. That's what you do. Yeah. Because it's not really about living in style at that point. It's just, I need to have a place, I need shelter so that I can go on my auditions and make this happen.
That's right. I knew it would be tough, but the pounding of the pavement was a romantic concept to me. It was all sort of like a poetic experience of like struggling, Yeah,
it sounds like you welcomed it like that, not like La Boheme, but yeah, you see these artists and they don't mind being poor because they're living this life that they want.
Yeah.
So your Broadway debut was Rock of Ages, which is pretty cool. You originated the role of Franz.
Yeah.
So what was that like? Did you do an out-of-town run beforehand? Did you join the project at another time?
It was ridiculous. Yeah, it was a very stupid, like silly Broadway debut. It was the gift that kept giving. It's kind of a blur when I think back on it, because I'm sure I took it for granted, in the sense that it happened very early after I graduated, where there was this off-Broadway show and I was going to go on tour with Grease. Like I had gotten this national tour as Sonny in Grease, and I was about to hit the road for a year. And this off-Broadway show, which I didn't, I have to say, I had just done a lot of Shakespeare in college. I think I was feeling like above a jukebox musical, like this off-Broadway, like 80s trashy bubblegum sort of thing, I was just like, oh, this is not going to be successful. You know, like this is going to close like immediately. It's not going to be, it's very low brow, you know, because I was a snob. I was a conservatory snob at the time. But my agents were like, no, you should stay in town and do this. You know, you should, you know, because if you go on tour, like, you know, you disappear for a year. So stay in town and do this. Even if it doesn't do well, more people will see you in it, you know? So it was good advice, obviously. It was, you know, the thing that blew everyone's expectations away. I mean, it transferred to Broadway. It got great reviews. It ran for 6 years, you know. So I had no expectations for that show, and it just kept exceeding those lack of expectations. So yeah.
That's the best way for a Broadway debut, right? That you have no expectations, so you can't be disappointed. And then it turns out to be something incredible for you.
I was so lucky. Yeah, I had this 11 o'clock number that hit me with your best shot. And it was just like such a stupid little gift. You know, it was really a nice time.
I would have loved to have seen you do that, because listening to your voice and the reading that we did together, you have such an amazing rocker voice. And I don't know if it's because, like, to hear you speak, you're kind of like a high baritone type of timbre. But when you add that to like a rock sound with your range, it's like a rich powerhouse. You're
very kind. I will say, just in the reading that I sang, the reading that we did together, the 12, all of my music was lowered. Just so you know, it was all taken down a full.
I wish that they had taken mine down.
Yeah. Well, you could have asked. I just flat out asked.
Yeah, I will do that next time.
Yeah. It's pretty much what I do every process, every single job I ever get. No, I'm a baritone, a true baritone. I have a tenor note or two, but that's because I've had to figure out how to croak them out, because, you know, musicals aren't written for baritones. They just aren't. You know, for men, if you're not a tenor, you're not going to have a career in musical theater if you want to, you know, have lead roles. So, you know, it's about navigating that and figuring it out and playing supporting characters. But, you know, composers don't write for low voices. You know, it's just not exciting for the audience.
So I see an opening for you to collaborate with a composer with the witty writing that you have, and then make sure that you have a leading man who's a baritone, so you can start changing this whole narrative. Because it's unfair. Right. It's unfair. I don't think that leading ladies should always be sopranos either. It's really unfair.
Look, Leslie, I'm sure you know Leslie Margarita, but she does a huge campaign on this, on like stop shaming singers for not having an upper, you know, for having that higher register. You know, like there are gorgeous singers who live in the basement. You know, alto women should not be shamed for not being sopranos. You know, it's its own thing.
It is. It's interesting that I don't know if it's a human quality. I mean, I'm sure it is, that we admire and validate extremes, right? Mm-hmm. So if you were a basso that's like singing, you know, notes that you only hear the piano play or the bass play, then you would be celebrated. But if you're, you know, squeaking out, well, probably not squeaking out, but floating out high E's and F's, then everyone is just so excited. Yeah. But you can have an amazing, beautiful timbre and just sing, you know, an octave and a half. What's wrong with that?
That's right.
I see nothing wrong with it. I think, I'm right there with her. It's
funny. I was joking before, but I am serious that almost every process I go into, I ask for things to be lowered. And I know it disappoints people because I know they want it in its original sort of experience. But almost never do people say no. There was one time I did the Who's Tommy at Kennedy Center, and I ended up figuring out how to sing it. But I played Cousin Kevin, and he has some really high music. And I remember because there was only 10 days of rehearsal, before you're doing the show. And so I was like, I don't have a rehearsal process. I don't have time to get this conditioned in my voice and like to be able to sing this without bleeding, like how am I going to do this?
Yeah.
But they weren't going to budge.
Really?
Most people let you lower their stuff, but the Who just, they were very precious about their music. And I, who am I to try to change like that original thing? But I remember being just terrified because it was the first time I had been met with a no for changing the music. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, get through this, pull this off, know? And I think I did, but maybe out of fear and just because I had to. But yeah, I even went into Assassins and got them to take it down half a step. Because it was a super high part. And Sondheim, when I met him, the first thing he said to me was like, who are you playing again? And I was like, Zangara. And he was like, be careful. It's so loud and so high. Protect your voice. Pace yourself. And I was like, Jesus, that doesn't make me feel better. First thing Sondheim tells me. So.
Oh, man. Yeah, I as we were talking before we got started, I was telling you that I lost my voice that day we did the presentation. And did
you take some prednisone? What did you do?
It was the biggest loss I've had. I was actually shocked. I started the presentation at 10 a.m. and when we finished at noon, thank God, for John and how quickly he's like, okay, we're done. Everybody leave. But I couldn't even say hello to a friend I ran into outside of what was it, at Pearl or Ripley? It doesn't matter. Yeah. But I had to go to voice therapy and I had to work with a teacher on getting everything back. And I had a couple more workshops that summer that I had to do. And I did have to take prednisone shots and just kind of fake it because there's such a stigma around losing your voice that it's like you've done something wrong or whatever. I think for me, when that happened, it was simply because I was singing Kiss Me Kate and then singing rock music during the day and my voice just couldn't take the switch. I was asking too much.
Not to mention just the nature of double duty. I mean, not just about different styles. I mean, Adrienne, you were doing 8 shows a week. So when you're doing 8 shows a week and you're double dutying and doing a full workload during the day of music, belting your face off, that's a recipe for disaster. I remember every time I was in a Broadway show and I did something outside, extracurricular, I feel like every time I would lose my voice or almost lose my voice or something. Or you get sick or you just get really worn down and then you end up having to call out of a show. That's why stage managers really don't want you to take on workshops and readings because they know you're going to eventually call out.
Absolutely.
But, it's hard to sit in a long run of a show and not participate in new work and development because, you got to keep your creative juices flowing. So those are blessings, obviously, to work on something else. But the heavy vocal demands are not forgiving.
No. And I couldn't say no. I couldn't say no because I was excited to do the reading. And so I was like, I'm not saying no to this. I'm going to make it work. And it's funny, you can have as much willpower in the world, but your body is your body. Your body can only handle so much.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting to think about this year that we've had off the boards and, not performing in general. And, in some regards, I'm like, when I start singing in the car or if I have to sing for some virtual responsibility, I'm like, I can't do that anymore. I don't do that. It's not what I do. I don't warm up. I don't sing, I sing in the car, but I'm not doing this every day. And your voice is a muscle, which means it needs to be conditioned. It needs to be in practice for it to produce what it used to produce. But at the same time, what a blessing to have time for healing too, because the commercialism of New York City theater means that you are always overextended, I think, if you want to make a living. You know, like if you're lucky, you're doing 8 shows a week while you're doing a workshop, while you're doing a concert, while you're, and your voice wasn't designed for that.
No.
And so you're, popping steroids, you're working past inflammation. Like, it's just not good. And so, it's nice to take a year off of needing steroids and pushing yourself to the brink.
Absolutely. I think right along with that is there's a mentality that if you're not doing all these things, then you're not a hard worker, or you're not taking it seriously, or, you're just coasting. But I really respect actors that say no because they know it's too much. I've had such a hard time in the past saying no because I want to take on every opportunity.
Of course.
But
that also goes with auditions. Like, your only power as an actor is to say no. And like, we forget that. I don't know. Well, first of all, we love working. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't be an actor at our age. You wouldn't commit to make believe in your adult life for as long as you have unless you really loved it, unless there was no other way around it. So you love it, you're committed, it's what you've signed up for, subscribed to for life. And you know what I mean? It's like, I just, if we say no, if it's not an enthusiastic yes, if you're reading the materials and you don't feel connected or you resonate with it and you're just yes because you're scared of saying no, you're actually doing yourself a huge disservice, because people respect you when you're selective, because it means that you have a clear idea of what you want, and that's to be respected.
I agree. I think too, I don't know if it's upbringing or if it's just being a Black woman. Sometimes I feel like saying no is going to cost me later on. It
looks like a bad attitude or something.
Yeah, like it could be a bad attitude, or it could be, oh, well, we took a chance on you and you said no, so we're just, we'll never think of you again. And that could all very well be in my head. It might not be real. But I not recently, like about a year or so ago, did a reading that was eventually going to do a run, a tour, and then go to Broadway. And I thought the project was going to be great. But then when they came back with, hey, do you want to do it? I thought, no. I thought, I was like, the role that I was in didn't bring me joy. Yeah. And I just didn't want to tour for 6 months or a year and then come back and do it just for the sake of doing another Broadway show. Yeah. And I do think it's going to be incredible, and it's going to, knock people's socks off, and it's going to be great. Yeah. I just won't be a part of that. Yeah. And I'm fine with that because I didn't want to do the role. Yeah. And I don't know. I guess I was thinking, oh, is this director going to hate me or never want to, consider me for something else? Yeah. And that's just, it's a chance you have to take, because you can't put your destiny or your career in someone else's hands and do whatever they want in hopes that they don't blacklist you or not want to work with you again.
Yeah. Yeah. No, wrong reasons. Yeah. You really have to listen to yourself in this life. I think we're realizing that more culturally too. Just like artists in general are like, no, I need to listen to myself. Actually, I need to follow my instinct here.
Definitely. And I think the sabbatical we're all taking is making that a little making that voice clearer.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I mean, just in the sense that I'm sure you relate to this, but when you're in New York, the amount of readings and concerts that you are asked to do on a regular basis, and the concerts are 54 Below sings Solange, or, it's just, and you feel like you have to keep being visible, keep being relevant, keep being seen and talked about and all these things. And this last year really smacked me in the face for all of that noise because like, all of a sudden every day you're getting these like virtual requests for charity performances. Can you do this for my theater company? Can you do this for my podcast? Can you do this? I mean, like, I'm happy to do this with you. I enjoy being around you. But not everything is going to bring me joy. And I early on, I think during all this, got a lot better at saying no. And it also got easier, I think, collectively for the human race to be like, everyone is allowed to say no.
Mm-hmm.
We're all going through our own moment right now, and you don't know where that person is emotionally, financially, mentally, spiritually. There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, a lot of things happening right now, a lot of displacement, and not knowing the future. And we're going through a sort of international collective trauma, like globally, I think. And so there is room for that forgiveness, I think. But I think it's a great thing. Again, just the shifting of priorities of like, what is important to me?
Yeah.
Doing every concert and reading is not important to me.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do the readings and concerts when I really believe in that creative and I want to help them fully realize their thing. But I don't need, for me, to constantly be busy scurrying about these things just to like facilitate a facade or like an appearance of being busy or in demand or whatever the hell,
You're really speaking to something. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's also like just in the sense that when you get invited to a screening or premiere of something, this thing of like, I have to keep up this illusion of prosperity. I have to like go get a new suit or go get new clothes, new outfit to wear for this thing, which I'm just going to return the next day. Like, cause I'm not rich, but I have to make the industry think I'm doing well financially so that they keep hiring me. It's like so messed up. And it really was this year that just like took me down a few pegs and was like, actually, everyone is actually seeing into each other's homes on a regular basis now. Like there's no more facade, stop hiding behind this illusion,
I love that. It's interesting that we are, and part of it is social media too. It makes things difficult, but I think that to be in a craft where you become someone else or you really try to find their truth and who they are as a character, it is interesting that we are living our lives trying to keep up with the Joneses in spite of trying to have truth and realness in what we bring to the stage. But I remember when I first moved to New York, being a bit overwhelmed by needing to be stylish and walking and walking to and from the stage door. I was like, oh no, this isn't me. I don't know how to pull this off. I'm tired. I just washed orange paint off my face. Can I just leave the theater barefaced? Like, do I really have to put on another layer of makeup just so I can do stage door? I really don't want to do this. I remember struggling with that and deciding, no, this is how I look. I have on a scully and a puff coat, and this is how I look. If you want me to sign your playbill, I'm more than happy to, but this is who I am. And it took me a while to be okay with that.
That's real. Yeah. The stage door culture in general is, that's a fairly new age thing, because that's they weren't dealing with that 30, 40 years ago.
Absolutely not.
It really has become this new digital age, especially because everyone wants a selfie and everyone, that's more important than the show, is like them meeting the person and getting the selfie, unfortunately. So it became like an addendum, like an extra part of your job. And I hear you. At the same time, of course, I grew up, I went to the stage door. I went to the stage door. So I remember being outside of Take Me Out and meeting Dennis O'Hare after seeing the show twice in one day and being like, Dennis, I'm writing a paper on, because I was going to that arts high school, so I was like, I'm writing a paper on Richard Greenberg, the playwright of Take Me Out, and the Manhattan Theater Company.
Adrian and I hope that you have enjoyed listening to the show thus far. If you'd like to hear the full interview and get access to the curtain call, head on over to 32barcut.com, where you can find a link to our Patreon page. There you will have exclusive access to the entire video collection and private RSS podcast feed, as well as other subscriber-only content. All right, that's all I got. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.